St Stephen's has been in Armonk since 1842. The church was first set up because in Northcastle there was no Episcopal church, and so Episcopalians had to go to Manchester or to Bedford to worship, and they wanted their own church. What's exciting is not only that it's St Stephen's 175th anniversary, but it's really Armonk's 175th anniversary as well.
The young people's group at the churches were really important to us because that's where our social life was. We had ice skating parties and square dances, and our neighbors, the Benzes, always gave a New Year's Eve dance party. It was very, very important because we were quite far from our high school friends.
I'm Nils Chittenden. I'm the rector of St Stephen's Episcopal Church in Armonk, and we're excited to be about to celebrate our 175th anniversary. Local farmer Elisha Sutton gave a quarter of an acre of his land in order for a church to be built, and one of the Armonk residents built the church in a fine Greek revival style. Some years after St Stephen's was built, Elisha Sutton died, and he bequeathed the rest of his farm to the church, and it was 14 acres, which comprises really what is now Bedford Road Historic District and Armonk Square. So St Stephen's decided to parcel up the land into lots, and they sold them off for residential and commercial development. And so in many ways you can say that St Stephen's helped to create modern-day Armonk. And it was around the time that they created this first subdivision, actually, that the name Armonk first came into usage.
It's a very historical church and cemetery. The cemetery has 25 or 22 Civil War veterans buried in it, which is something that I got very interested in later in life after I had retired. Barbara Massey and I did a survey of burials in the smaller Northcastle cemeteries, and including St. Stephen's. And while we were doing St. Stephen's, I realized that they seem to have an awful lot of Civil War veterans buried there. So I became very interested in the Civil War vets and how the Civil War affected Northcastle. There are a number of very interesting soldiers buried there. There's only one soldier who became an officer. Most of them are privates and corporals. Several were prisoners of war of the Confederates in places like Andersonville.
On Saturday, the 5th of November, there's going to be a very interesting, dramatic presentation of some of the stories of the people who are interred in our cemetery. There are fascinating stories. There's so many of those who are buried there. One of the people that we want to tell the story of is called Nehemiah Searles. He was one of the people who purchased one of those lots when St Stephen's created the first subdivision. He built a house at what is now number 30 Bedford Road. And one of the very cool things for me personally about knowing the Nehemiah Searles story is that I'm living in the house that he built in 1850. As you walk around the cemetery, you'll see names that everyone in Armonk will know. Mr. Creamer, Mr. Sniffen, obviously Nehemiah Searles. There are lots of well-known Armonk names in our cemetery, and this is a way of helping their stories to really capture our interest again.
Meg and I were married in St. Stephen's Church here in 63 years ago, and the church will celebrate its 175th anniversary next year. And so there are a lot of things that are going to be done to recognize that. And one of the things which I think is very interesting is a sort of a walkthrough of the cemetery, which is adjacent to St. Stephen's. And we will choose a handful of graves, perhaps Civil War veterans or people who led a life of some distinguishing feature, and we'll have people standing by those graves and sort of giving a synopsis of who those people were. So I heard about that, and I felt, well, the people who were here long before we arrived, who lived here for hundreds of years with the Siwanoy Indians, and I think they should be represented. And so the church said, okay, go ahead. What would you have them say? How would you represent these people? And so what I'm going to read is what I wrote, and I hope someone will say that to the other church members as they go through. I represent no grave or marker. I speak for a half-forgotten tribe, the Siwanoy, who lived here long before your people came. Some of us lay where we fell untended. We tried to bury some, but the animals often found our poor work and scattered our bones. We have left no trace. You cannot locate the stockade where a man named Underhill killed hundreds of us. Only his comment that none of us cried out as we died in fires he set is remembered. What's the use of your remembering us, who lived here thousands of moons ago, where you live now? Turn off your machines, dim your lights, go outside and wonder at the shape of the moon and the expression on its face. We wondered just as you may wonder today. Perhaps our spirits can meet in shared wonderment. The moon looks down and measures us all. We were not perfect in our time. You are not perfect in yours. That alone is a good thing to remember. Perfection will always escape us.
As soon as our renovations are done, the church is going to be open all day, every day, so that people can just come in and be quiet and be inspired by the surroundings and be calmed by the surroundings, admire the architecture, and that it'll be a real oasis of calm for people, I hope. And people can just come in and say a prayer, just sit quietly, light a candle. And I want everyone to know that St. Stephen's is there for everyone. This is everyone's church. Everyone is welcome. And we hope that everyone will want to enjoy St. Stephen's as the sacred space for the whole community.